era mwana Zambia nchangamuka yafika futi. Yenda usanke wene ufuna kusogolele papaloti. Exercise your right. You know that your vote is your right. Zambian 18 years and above na NRC ni time to vote. You a go and vote. It's your right to vote. Now we are fika yo sanga. It's time to vote. You a go and vote. It's your right to vote. Now we are fika yo sanga. It's time to vote. Nina message ya bazanga ma youth. Time ya fika for us to choose. Sanga capable leader. Where that is ogolelo lo vindu vaipa. Ngandiwe Zambian participate. For violence takana vote. Yenda ka vote your vote counts. Whether unkala kumuzi olo mu town. If you're 18 years and above, you're eligible to vote. Yeah, I got my NRC and my voter's card. I will vote. Tell your uncle to vote. Tell your sister to vote. Tell your shikulu to vote. Because your vote counts, so vote. Era mwana Zambia nchangamuka yafika futi. Yenda usanke wene ufuna kusogolele papaloti. Exercise your right. You know that your vote is your right. Zambian 18 years and above na NRC ni time to vote. You a go and vote. It's your right to vote. Now we are fika yo sanga. It's time to vote. You a go and vote. It's your right to vote. Now we are fika yo sanga. You fika your time to vote. You know it's your right to vote.
Right here at Mulangushi International Conference Center, where it's been declared as the National Results Center. And of course, my name is Jesse Kalambo, as usual, with my good right here. Let's here to take you on the announcement that has been made so far by ECZ chairperson and different commissioners. And just in case you're lagging behind, the consolidated results for 1 out of 206 out of 226 constituencies for the top two, President Hakainde Hichilema is still taking the lead with 2,057,986. Of course, seconded by Brian Mundubile with 190,920. So now these are the consolidated results for the 161 constituencies out of the 226. And of course, we await for another batch that is coming in at 16 hours as announced by ECZ chairperson.
Well, quite an interesting turn of events in terms of President Hakainde Hichilema maintaining the lead. As we saw from the first day when the results were being mentioned, he has continued to maintain the lead. And him going to over 2 million votes, it simply indicates that there's a difference gap between Mr. Hakainde Hichilema and Mr. Brian Mundubile is now 867, 66 votes, 867, 66 votes. That's the difference between the two. So which means for Mr. Brian Mundubile to make a catch-up, he really has to do a lot of work in terms of the remaining 65 constituencies. Because now the 5 constituencies, because we have done 161, so meaning there are 61 constituencies that are remaining. So we can still say it's a wait and see, but the difference is above 800. There's a lot of work that has to be done by the NRPUP president in order to do a catch-up.
Absolutely. And one particular constituency that got my attention with 88.86% turnout is Solwezi Central constituency. You know, this particular constituency had Brian Mundubile at 2,078 votes, President Hakainde Hichilema at 54,207 votes. Now you can see the gap is quite huge. And I'm wondering right about now, what could be the cause? Does this mean this is a stronghold, or maybe campaigns were not done adequately for the NRPUP candidates?
Well, this one is a case of ensuring that your strongholds, you amass as much votes as possible. And we can clearly see that the difference is just too huge, over 50 thousand in terms of difference. So for me, this is a case of doing your best and also having your voters sticking to you, is despite of having opposition like the NRPP, because they went into Sorwezi, but what they did in Sorwezi may not have been good enough in order for the people of Sorwezi to have a turnaround on Mr. Hakainde Hichilema and give him less votes. So having more than 50,000 people turning up, it's a huge voter turnout for the people of Sorwezi in support of President Hakainde Hichilema.
And of course, there's a little bit of controversy coming in from the NRPUP presidential candidate, Brian Mundubile, who says he doubts the credibility of the results. He, according to the statement, the results being announced by ECZ are different from what's on the Gen 20s, saying NRPUP presidential candidate Brian Mundubile. So this is a statement he released. And I'm here thinking, oh my goodness, what's going on? What's going on?
Yeah, so the issue of the disputes will always come up because this is an election and people come into this election with a view that we're going to win. But when you begin to see issues of not comfortable in terms of how the results are being counted, then you're always going to come up to say this is not happy with this and so on and so forth. I'll cite an example with what we said last evening, where in some polling stations the counting of votes was stopped, and then you resume for like you're starting afresh. So those are some of the loopholes that saying we are not happy with what is going on.
Right.
So it was expected to be that case.
All right. And giving you an update of the parliamentary results, I have a list of MPs that have qualified, or rather that have been declared winners from the Eastern Province. And from the UPND side, 7 parliamentary candidates have been declared as the winners of Eastern Province. And talking about NRPUP, list of MPs that have been declared winners from Eastern Province is about 13. 13 members of parliament have qualified under the NRPUP Eastern Province only. Take note. The independent member of parliament that have been declared winners from the Eastern Province are 7. 7 is the number of independent member of parliament, that have qualified in the Eastern Province. And talking about the Losers Party, they have 1 person who has been declared as winner, a member of parliament from Eastern Province, and this is none other than Enoch Kaimba under Kapoche constituency.
Quite interesting because when you look at for instance, one election he tried, but he was not given an opportunity under the Patriotic Front by then. For him to bounce back again under the Tonse, which is also almost the same like a rebranded PF, it is an achievement for him personally because he has been working hard that he becomes a member of parliament for Kapoche constituency. Have managed to attend. But when you look at generally how also Eastern Province has also produced some shockers. For instance, our former agriculture minister, Mr. Tolo Piri, did not manage to win the seat. So it means that the NRPP candidate who managed to win that seat did his homework and he finally got that seat. So it will be interesting that Eastern Province has not been fully taken by the governing party, and we are going to talk about division, and this will bring about proper checks and balances in terms of how Eastern Province will be represented by the people that have been elected from the opposition, independents, and as well as people that are coming from the governing party. So it is quite an interesting state of affairs that is coming from Eastern Province.
And of course, just in case you missed it, we had what I would like to term as a dramatic incident right here at Mulungushi International Conference Center, as Kasonde Mwenda is now the only remaining observer for the NRPUP presidential candidate Brian Mundubile at the results center right here at Mulungushi, just a few hours after fellow observer Enoch Tonga was kicked out. And so my biggest question is, do you think he will survive until the end?
Well, what Mr. Enoch Tonga did, for me, it was not something that was good, because if he had a question, he should just ask a question, as opposed to saying, calling this the announcement of the election to be suspended, because he doesn't have the jurisdiction or power. So I think he did not handle himself very well, because now he's reducing the number of people that are representing the Tonse Alliance or the NRP, PUP and their alliance partners in terms of representation, because he needs people to represent you in
Right.
case there's an election result that has been announced which you are not comfortable with. You need to come up, but leaving one person in this auditorium is quite unfair. So I thought he should have handled himself very well, because what he did does not warrant coming from a person of because he is the president of the Third Liberation Movement, so he needed to handle himself very well.
Right. And of course, we continue waiting for the other batch that will be announced at 16 hours, as announced by Chairperson ECZ. And we hope that this time around, ECZ will keep time so that we continue progressing as a nation. Remember, we are yet to find out if we are going to finalize, if ECZ is going to finalize with the announcement of results today. Oh, I mean, could be tomorrow. What do you think?
Based on what has happened from last evening this morning, last evening they came with about 30 constituencies which they announced, and this morning again, this afternoon actually, they came with 30, and from the result that were remaining with 60 constituencies that were remaining with 65. So if the ECZ would come with 30, meaning will remain the nation will await for the 35 constituencies to be announced. So meaning this process could be concluded.
And talking about the famous story of the militia now, of the NRPUP presidential candidate has actually denied the militia links, and he says police raid fabricated to divert from polls. And now NRPUP presidential candidate Brian Mdwile says allegation that his residence in Lusaka's Kablonga area was being used by militia, describing the government's account of a police operation at the premises as a fabricated intended to divert attention from concerns surrounding the 2026 general elections. Now, this reaction follows a statement by Secretary to Cabinet Patrick Kangwa that the police service, acting on a tip of members of the public, conducted a joint operation at the premises in Kablonga on the night of the August 13. This is quite an interesting story, especially that it is happening as announced a presidential candidate results are being announced. What do you think about this particular issue?
Wow. I think one of the takeaways from this statement that was issued by the Secretary to Cabinet, Mr. Patrick Kangwa, is something that has raised a lot of questions. For instance, when the opposition, NRPUP and the family members of those that were told have been missing, the government came up and said no one was missing and no one was abducted.
Right.
And there was a visit to Ibex police station by Information Permanent Secretary Tabo Kabwana, and they did refute. Even they went as far as Mainasoko to say none of these people who the opposition claims was abducted is present at these facilities. But when you again the same person from the same a different person from the same government comes up and says actually there was a raid, and during that raid there was an exchange of fire, and we recovered whatever they're calling weapons that are of high grade and so on. It raises a lot of questions, because people now are beginning to ask, but why did your government, another official of your same government, refuse? Because the people that are at stake here are family members, they are breadwinners. So if there's anything that has happened to them, you need to give proper information. So it is this statement again. It creates a room for speculation and also room for saying this might have been a case of politically motivated to in order to instill fear in the opposition and its members. It's not a very good state of affairs. But if it indeed it is true, then it is also not a very good state of affairs. But I think the general public deserves evidence. In as far as people may say no, evidence will be brought when these people are presented before court. But I think when you say there was an exchange of fire, then there's need for more details. For instance, people are claiming and alleging that Mutoteka, a former Lunte member of parliament, was shot. So people need to see whether it is true or not. But if you are going to downplay it and portray a lack of seriousness to a claim as someone dying, then you are not being sincere to the Zambian people.
Right, we wait to find out more concerning that particular issue because it's sensitive and it borders on the life of someone and the anxiety that it holds regarding the family of Mr. Katotwa. And now, as we continue waiting for the other batch that is coming in at 16 hours, we would like to assure you that we're here to give you the election update as you require. But until then, goodbye. My name is Jessie Kalambo.
Thank you. Goodbye. See you again at 16.